welcome. You just heard Immaterial by Sophie, and I really wanted to play that song tonight because Sophie was a fantastic trans artist, and I love that song. I used to play it on my radio show when I was in college still, and I wanted to honor her because she did pass away earlier this year. So if you want to support her music posthumously, you should definitely check her out. But I love her song, and I thought it was perfect to highlight a trans artist because tonight we're going to be talking all about non-cis identities at Straight Talk. So I'm Jackie. I'm just going to be starting us off just to orient everybody to Scituate Pride, what Straight Talk is, and then we have our moderator, Mia, who's going to be taking over for me, and they're going to be presenting in the second round for terminology. So yeah, I think we can get started. So just so everyone kind of has an idea of what we're going to be doing tonight, we're going to take about 15 to 20 minutes to just talk about Scituate Pride. We're going to go through some terminology, and we're going to talk about some ground rules. Tonight, the terminology and ground rules will take probably 5 minutes longer than they might normally. We have a lot of information tonight, so I'm just going to ask everyone to stay locked in, stay patient, and make sure you just try and take in what you can. The beauty of a panel is that when you have questions, we can answer them later. So if there's anything that maybe you're not getting right away, just go with it and ask us later, or ask in the chat as you have questions throughout the presentation so that we can get to them during the panel. That would be a great option too. So after we get through that, we're going to have panelist intros. So all of our awesome panelists, we have 5 tonight, are going to introduce themselves, and then we will get into the Q&A session where all of you can ask questions, which is, I think, probably why everyone is here. So just to get started, if you haven't heard about Scituate Pride, we're an all volunteer run organization, and we started last year. I joined in the summer, and we are just trying to make sure that Scituate is a more inclusive place for people of all identities, but especially our LGBTQIA plus individuals. And a lot of what we're trying to work on is addressing bullying, marginalization, and suicide, and trying to keep our community safe by having events like this, which are all about visibility. So you can find us here on Instagram, we're on Facebook, this is our website, and we have an email as well. We have an awesome mailing list that our communications director, Emily, is in charge of, so hopefully you might have heard from her today. And you can join that at our website. I'll show this all again at the end of the night, so if you don't get it now, you can get it later. And then, let's see. I'll just leave our mission up right here. I'll go through it just so everyone can see it. Our mission is to inspire, support, and make visible a thriving LGBTQIA+ community in Scituate. We aim to elevate inclusivity, equity, and awareness, and celebrate the lives of our LGBTQIA+ and community members. We foster values that strengthen connections and belonging among LGBTQIA+ people, while advocating and educating to build a strong alliance with the greater Scituate community. Scituate Pride is welcoming to all people, including allies and families of our LGBTQIA+ community. And tonight, I'm very excited to announce that Scituate Pride in June 2021, will be hosting, I guess this is the second annual Pride 2021 celebration in Scituate. Last year we had a march, an informal march. This year we have a whole slew of activities that we're planning. So I just wanted to let you all know so that you can save the date for the month of June and expect some awesome activities coming up then. And I do want to make sure that everyone knows that because we're all volunteer, that means we want volunteers like you to help us. So if you're interested, check out our website, email us, find us on social media, and let us know that you're interested. And you can help us plan Pride 2021. So Straight Talk, if this is your first Straight Talk, you might be like, what are we doing tonight? Why does this happen? So Straight Talk is a series of quarterly talks where we hear from a panel of Scituate and South Shore LGBTQIA+ community members. And you know, talks like this, it's not just for LGBTQIA+ people to, you know, see themselves and find community. It's also for our allies to come and learn more about us and how to support us. So if you're here to learn, no matter if you're part of the LGBTQIA plus community or maybe you're a straight or cisgender person, everyone is here to learn and create visibility. So that's kind of why we're all here. And we'll have another straight talk in June during Pride 2021. So that's what's going on tonight. This is our last plug for Scituate Pride, which is our organization that is running this event. Please, if you can, if you have the means, donate, because we are entirely volunteer run. We're a 501c3, so we get all of our money to put on events and to run Scituate Pride 2021, things like that, from support from you all, from grants. So if you can donate, please do, and join us at our mailing list if you haven't yet. And this little QR code should take you right there if you'd like to do that. So I'll do 3, 2, 1. Next slide. So yeah, that's it. I hope I didn't rush through that too fast. I really just want to give Mia and the rest of our panelists the stage. Yeah, without further ado, Mia, I guess take it away. Oh, and I'm going to ask you to unmute so that you can take it away.
Thank you, Jackie. Hi, I'm Mia. I'm just going to be going over some of the terminology that you might be hearing or asking about in this meeting tonight. First, we have this, which has been up for the last meetings as well, which goes over all of the letters of the LGBTQIA and then add plus and then some of the identities there.
And you can always find more here at this.
So starting with what our panel is all about is gender. So we're starting with this panel which is what is the gender binary? So the gender binary is the classification of gender into two distinct opposite forms of masculine and feminine, whether by social system or cultural beliefs. And we have this chart that Darcy shared with us that kind of was a good way to show that it's just like a whole spectrum of identity, which doesn't always fall in between male and female. It's usually just somewhere in between or somewhere outside of that because it's just a huge spectrum. And the next thing is gender identity and gender expression. So gender identity is a personal sense of one's own gender. Gender expression is a person's external behavior, mannerisms, interests, and appearance that are associated with gender in a particular cultural context. And then there's this chart that Jackie shared with us that's from the Gender Unicorn from a different, I don't actually know the organization, but it's like a little interactive thing that you can use to kind of explain to other people how you feel in relation to your own identity or expression. And the interactive thing, you can like move the little dials of the thing. In relation to gender identity and expression, it's important to note that a person's gender identity and their expression don't have anything to do with one another. They are separate things. So your identity might not always match up with the cultural context of an expression. And also gender identity and expression don't have anything really to do with someone's sexuality. The two are different. I also wanted to note that there are distinct definitions for specific sexualities and specific genders, but you kind of have to remember that it's still a spectrum. So if you feel that you identify with something but don't really fit in the definition of it, that's 100% okay. And you know you better than anyone else. So you know, you identify with what you feel like. So the next, we're going into defining identities. And the first one we're going to talk about is transgender. So just the straight definition. Being transgender means being a person whose gender identity differs from the gender that person had or was identified as having at birth. So a trans man is a man whose gender identity at birth differs from their current gender as a man. And the same for a trans woman, a woman whose gender is assigned whose gender assigned at birth differs from their current gender as a woman. And then we have cisgender, which is a cisgender person is a person whose gender identity corresponds with the gender they had or was identified as having at birth. Next, we have, sorry, Jackie's in control of the slide here.
I just want to jump in really quick and do a disclaimer that we are recording this tonight, and I wanted everyone to know that just for your own personal reasons if there's any problems with that. But yes, Mia, keep going. Thank you.
So the next one is gender non-conforming, which is usually shortened to just GNC. Gender non-conforming people are people who do not subscribe to societal expectations of typical gender expressions. And this is a term that's more commonly used to refer to gender expression as opposed to gender identity. And, oh, okay, sorry, yeah. Non-binary is a gender identity and experience that embraces a full universe of expressions and ways of being that resonate for an individual, moving beyond the man-woman gender binary. This is often abbreviated to the letters NB or NB, which is ENBY. So if you see that, that's what that means. A non-binary, I just thought I should note that a non-binary person can identify as transgender, but not all non-binary people feel that transgender describes who they are, so they won't use it. Also, I wanted to note that people can change, people can change their gender identity at any time if they feel a different one actually suits them better, because they're all fluid. And at the bottom, we included other terms like gender queer and gender fluid, agender, and there are more. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about intersex. Intersex is an umbrella term to describe a wide range of natural body variations that do not fit into conventional definitions of a man or woman. Some variations include chromosome composition, hormone concentrations, external and internal characteristics, and more. Intersex people are relatively common. Society's denial of their existence has allowed very little room for intersex issues to be discussed publicly. Jackie included this fun fact that being intersex is as common as having red hair, which I'm pretty sure is 4% of the world. So next we have this chart which shows different pronouns and a neopronoun. The most common pronouns are he, him, and she, her. A lot in America, I guess I should specify that. I don't know about the rest of the world. A lot of non-binary people use they, them pronouns, but not all non-binary people do. There are non-binary people who use she, her, he, they, she, they, or are comfortable with all pronouns. There are also people who are men or women who use they, them pronouns or all pronouns. Neopronouns are any set of singular third-person pronouns that are not officially recognized in the language that they are used in. They are typically created with the intent of being a gender-neutral pronoun set. So on the chart, I wrote the Z's or Zers, which is Zerself, which is a common neopronoun, and another one is ers. A lot of non-binary and gender non-conforming people use neopronouns. Next, we're going to talk about pronouns and names. What is a dead name? A dead name is the name a person went by before they decided to change their name, usually transgender or non-binary people. Some things to keep in mind: a person's name does not indicate their gender. A person's pronouns do not indicate their gender, and vice versa. Using she, her pronouns doesn't necessarily mean that a person identifies as woman. You should use the pronouns in or name someone has asked you to use, no exceptions. A person's pronouns are never preferred, they just are. And another thing to keep in mind is that it's not necessary for transgender people to change their name. There are a lot of trans and non-binary people who are happy with the name that they were given. And also the reasons that a transgender person might change their name varies. And I think if you're curious, just wait and maybe they'll tell you why, but it's just a personal thing most of the time. And when you're talking about, I also wanted to talk about a little bit when you're talking about a trans or non-binary person to someone else and the other person doesn't know who you're talking about, you could maybe try to pull up a picture or say, like so-and-so's kid or sibling, instead of using a dead name or the wrong pronouns. And that's it for the terminology, except for the slide. And I can read the slide. So we just wanted to go over just like some main topics that I just talked about. So just to like rehash them. So number one is never appropriate to use someone's dead name. Again, you can try other methods like pulling up a picture or speaking on other family members or friends. Two, gender identity and sexuality exist independently of each other. They don't really affect each other in any way. Three, you don't need to understand someone in order to respect them or love them. Four, experiences of the panelists here are their own and not representative of other people you may meet in the future. Everyone has different stories and different things that are going on, so just keep that in mind. And five, gender and sexuality are fluid and can change at any time.
Awesome. Thank you, Mia, so much. That was, I know when I was reviewing the slides and putting it together, I was learning a lot of stuff that I didn't know before. And a disclaimer, I don't know like how accurate scientifically the stat about intersex people is, but I've heard it thrown around a lot in queer circles. So I thought it was interesting because it's a good way to visualize something that maybe is new to you. So yeah, next we're just going to talk about ground rules. I have this little video that sometimes I play. I made it on TikTok last year, and I guess I'll see if this plays.
Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep.
Cool. I think, yeah, Casey Kimmel's laughing because she said that she loved that song, and I actually didn't know that this was like a song. Like I had never heard it until TikTok, so I'm glad I found it. Yeah, so that's just a brief intro to our ground rules. I think we had a couple other ground rules that now I feel like I want to just make sure I get to because I don't want to miss them. They're in my speaker notes and it's really just that important. So it's just, yeah, be open-minded and make sure, when you're asking questions, don't ask something that you wouldn't be comfortable answering yourself. Because, we're asking these panelists to do a lot for us by being here. So we want to respect their privacy and also how hard it can be to talk about things that are really personal to you. So, make sure you keep that in mind as a guideline when asking questions. And, if you're not sure, do your best. I'm going to be screening all the questions. So if there is something that you ask and maybe it's not appropriate to ask, I'll let you know that that's not really something that we can ask the panelists. But hopefully you can ask something else and find out more. The other thing I want to mention is that a lot of times I think we hear the language of a safe space when we do talks like this. And our friend Emily, who's also on the board, our communications director, she started talking about something which is called a brave space, and I think this actually fits that definition a lot more, because this is a space where people, they don't have to come here and tell straight people, strangers basically, about their lives, but they choose to because they want you to know. They want you to know more. They want you to learn. They want you to meet more people, and I think that's really brave to do something like that and expose yourself. your heart in a way that you might not normally with a stranger. So I think this is a brave space. And with that in mind, I do want to just let everyone know that I'm going to give everyone like 15 seconds. And if you've heard all of this information tonight and you thinking, you know, maybe this is not for me, there's no judgment. I'll give you time to leave now. But know that we will be not tolerating any language or any hateful language throughout the rest of this time. I'm not expecting that to be a problem, but you know, you never know. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, cool. It looks like you're all still here. Awesome. And that's not to say that if you do leave, you know, no one's gonna think that like you're whatever. It's fine. Leave of your own accord. You are all people that have your own integrity. So just to kind of frame the panel, which will come next, I'm going to be the bouncer tonight. So I'm just keeping an eye on security, and I'm also keeping an eye on all the questions that you send in the chat. So any questions that come in, please send your questions at any time. At any time you can send questions to me personally. So yeah, you can send questions to me, the host, and I will pass them along to Mia to ask you. And you might notice that you have not been able to unmute, which is on purpose. We're gonna be asking all questions via chat. And I do want to say one last thing, which is that no one here is a medical professional. No one here is a mental health professional, to my knowledge, that is speaking tonight. And if you need resources or help in any of those areas, like, this is a great place to start, but we're not the professionals. So on the next slide, I've actually put some resources that we all like. So Fenway Health is a really great option for LGBTQIA+ health. They have a whole section about transgender health, and I think they were one of the first hospitals in the whole country to treat AIDS, which is really cool. One of the first, maybe not the first. So they're a great option. They're right in Boston. Plume, you can find them on Instagram or online. They're a great resource to find like support groups and learn more about trans and non-binary, gender non-conforming, intersex issues. The Trevor Project and the Trans Lifeline are both great options if you ever just like need someone to talk to. So the Trevor Project is open 24/7, 365 days a year. You can always call them. You can text them. And the Trans Lifeline you can also call to get help. And that's any kind of help. So keep this in mind. If you, we can share this resource guide to you after the talk, hopefully. I'll check with Emily on that. But yeah, I think this is it. I think you can finally meet the panelists, which I'm sure everyone is so excited to do. So I'm going to hand it back to, let Mia take the rest of the time. And I'm gonna leave this slide up, have everyone unmute, or I'll do it one at a time, I guess, because we're just introducing ourselves. So I'll start with Mia, since you're the first name on here, and you can kind of do an introduction of your identity, and then yeah, anything else, your 5-minute spiel, whatever it is, to introduce yourself to us.
Hi again. I'm Mia. I'm trans, non-binary, queer, and I use they, them pronouns. I'm 22 years old and just graduated college in 2020, which was an experience for sure. And I've lived in Scituate for my whole life except for college, and now I'm back in Scituate because of this thing, the pandemic, you know. But I've lived on the South Shore for almost all my life. I came out as queer in middle school, but trans and non-binary in my junior year of college, so there's a bit of a gap between those two time periods. But yeah, I have like stuff written down, but I don't really know what to talk about. I have a cat. Her name is Meatball. But I myself am a vegetarian, and a lot of people find that to be strange. But it happened. I'm technically, like, I say that I came out as queer, but I'm technically pansexual, but I've been having a lot of separation from that word recently, or that identity recently, because of a lot of just like stuff that's been going on between like bi people and pan people, and it's just, I don't know, I just need to take a little bit of a break from identities for a second, which I think a lot of people have sometimes, just need to like hang out. But yeah, that's me.
Okay, awesome. So I guess the next panelist is Casey. So Casey, I'll ask you to unmute and do your thing.
I thought I was all prepared, ready to go for this one. So I'm gonna let's start with saying my name is Casey, she, her. I'm trans woman. I know many of you in the audience know who I am, whether you're a colleague or a student or a past student of mine or just somebody else in the community. But if that was any giveaway, I teach at Scituate High School. I've been doing so for the past 8 years. I came out roughly 4 years ago at school to actually a lot less fanfare than I anticipated happening, but I personally received a lot of support from not only my students, but many of my colleagues and friends. Less so from family, but that's another story, so I'm not going to drag that down right now. Again, I'm not going to hog the spotlight because I know there's some other questions going on here, but I do have a cat, and she's named after food products too, and her name is Peaches. She's probably outside the door trying to beat her way in here because this is her bedroom, as it were. So again, in order to let the people have time to speak, I'm going to be quiet now.
Awesome. So I think next on my list is Callie. I'm just going to share the screen briefly, so if people need to read, they can have that for like 15 seconds. And then I'll take it away, so it can just be Callie, if that's fine. Maybe this doesn't work. We'll see.
Okay, hi. My name's Callie. I am 20 years old. I grew up my whole life in Scituate and did Scituate public schools like K through 12, graduated Scituate High School in 2018. And now I live in the greater Boston area to go to Emerson College, and I do theatrical lighting there, which is very fun for me, and I love to talk about it just as much as I love to talk about gender diversity. I remember most of my childhood, I was always referred to as a tomboy, and that just like kind of stuck with me for a lot of growing up. I always kind of felt like gender was like more put upon me than I ever considered it part of my identity. And this started to change, I think, with a lot of social influences, and growing up in like such a small community, I think affected that a lot for me. And by like middle school, high school, I was like, I need to fit in, and that does not include expressing my true self. And it took a long time and a lot of work and a lot of good friends to help me through that. But like by the time I was 14, I knew that I was pansexual, and this was the time that I was also starting high school, and I was like comfortable with being out about that. But also I started to realize like, there's some weird stuff going on with me and the rest of my queer identity, and I don't know how to put it to words yet. And so I was doing a lot of research and looking at different like identities and labels, and I remember I found the term non-binary, and that just like clicked with me immediately, and it has since then just like resonated with me as like, this is the way that I identify. And I, a few years later, realized that I also identify as transgender, and those two things are like both part of my identity, but not dependent on one another. So that has also been like part of my journey and experience as a queer person. And I didn't feel comfortable being out about my gender identity in terms of being non-binary and being transgender until the point when I had already graduated high school, because for a lot of different reasons, frankly. And by the time I got to college, I felt that I could be out about my gender identity and really just like came into myself. And I'm fortunate that Emerson College is like a really super duper trans inclusive, like LGBT friendly space for education and to work at. Like introducing yourself with your pronouns is pretty standard in like academic and workspaces there. And like there's gender neutral bathrooms in like all the buildings. And it's just like honestly a haven for like young queer people to come together to study and create. And it's something that I've really appreciated, like first time in my life not being the only non-binary person in the room. That was crazy. That happens pretty often now, that like I am one of several trans people in any given room at my school. And that's definitely part of like a really great part about being out now. And like prior to the time when I could be fully out of the closet, there were a lot of supports that I had at Scituate High School that like helped me through a lot of difficult times, like the SHS Gay Straight Alliance and the drama club especially were like places where I felt like I could be part of a community that understood my experience as a young queer person. And so those kind of groups were like super duper important to me and are like parts of the reasons why I keep coming back to like Scituate and do stuff with everybody here, because I care about doing outreach for young queer people, especially who are looking for community support, because I feel like there was a time when I did not necessarily have that.
Thank you so much, Callie. That's awesome. That's one of the main reasons I'm here too, because I want to make sure people that are younger than me don't have to deal with some of the stuff that I did, and it's a lot easier. Awesome. Thank you. So I think next we have Sue. So I'll ask you to unmute. And very quickly, I will just share your identity if people want to read it, and then I will make that go away.
Hi, so my name is Sue, and I'm actually an intersex person, which means that I have some male parts and some female parts. My particular intersex variation is called Klinefelter Syndrome, and it means that I have an extra X chromosome in my genetic makeup. I was diagnosed with that when I was 15, but long before that, like when I was maybe 3 or 4, I knew there was something different about me, like something inside, but I didn't really have the language to explain what that was to anyone. And that feeling of being different, like I could tell I wasn't quite like my male friends, I wasn't like my female friends. I felt closer to my female friends, but I didn't really know why. That feeling lasted through my teens, through my 20s, through my 30s. And it was a really lonely place because I couldn't see myself in any of my other friends. For a long time, I thought, if I just tried to act like my male friends, maybe I would fit in. Somehow I would just fall into that role. But that never worked out. And I always felt like I was just living a lie when I was doing that. About 5 years ago, I'm in my 40s now. About 5 years ago, I discovered what the term gender identity meant. Somebody actually, explained it to me. And it was really eye-opening because it was the first time that anyone told me that how I felt inside could actually be different than what my birth certificate says, or that I was raised as a boy all my life. And also that my gender expression could be basically anything that made me feel happy and feel content in my own skin. So my gender identity right now is femme non-binary, which means I'm a little bit more female leaning. My connection to Scituate isn't actually direct. I've never lived in Scituate, but somebody from Statute Pride contacted me through a company that I co-founded called Pride on Foot. And what we do is that we help fitness communities like gyms, yoga studios, running groups become more gender aware and gender diverse and LGBTQIA inclusive. And we do that through education and advocacy, and really hope to help them understand what it means for a gender diverse person to have access to a safe workout environment and what that can mean to their lives. So that's pretty much what I do. Happy to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, and I just shared the slide about Pride on Foot, so you can visit Pride on Foot's website right here at prideonfoot.org. And yeah, and I wanted to just mention that I'm so glad that you're here, Sue, and that we connected because recently, as we've been growing, we've been hearing from more people, and more people are saying, you know, we want to get involved. So we've been kind of opening up our umbrella to include people from all over the South Shore. So it's really cool to have people who are kind of all over the place. I think we have a lot of places in Massachusetts represented tonight, which is awesome. And thank you again. I'm so excited. Lastly, we have Darcy, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna ask you to unmute. I will share your little slide for a couple seconds and then we'll get into it.
Sounds good. My name is Darcy. I'm from Scituate. You've probably seen me either play soccer, softball, basketball, or played some form of an instrument somewhere. I have actually a little bit of a story about sports and how having gendered sports affects mental health and like how inspired you are to continue with athletics, because I dropped out because of a lot of a lot of tension in my soccer teams and softball as well, because that is typically a feminine sport. And I'm currently going to Worcester Polytechnic Institute. I'm a freshman, and I am a singer, and I'm also on testosterone, which means that my voice is dropping and my singing voice cannot compensate for that. So that's a fun journey. But yeah, if you guys have any specific questions about that, I'm happy to answer.
Awesome. Thank you, Darcy. So I think that's everyone. Now I'm going to unmute everybody and we'll start at getting to your questions. Oh, we have a little heart from Katie. Thank you. Not to call you out or anything, but yeah, we have so many awesome questions already in the chat. So I guess I'll start sending those to Mia. I don't even know which one to pick first. They're all so great. Here, let's do this one first, Mia, about I won't say who any of the questions are from, just so I don't like expose anyone, but because this should be all anonymous. But yeah. Did you got it? Good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mute the rest of the time. I'm all done. Goodbye.
All right, so this first question asks, what are some powerful moments of visibility you've experienced that have made you feel included? Yeah, Casey, want to start us off?
I tell this story to other trans people who are scared of coming out, particularly people around my age, but this, I guess, goes to anybody who is scared. And again, remember I'm only speaking for myself and not for anybody else, because one, I'm a faculty member. I'm not the other panelists, so I can't speak from the student perspective. But I remember the day that I was sitting there in faculty meeting, and it's kind of hard to tell as I still choke up every time, but when I was sitting there and I knew what the faculty meeting was that day. We had this big old fake list of things that was going to go on, but I knew what the principal was going to say. And he just basically said that, we have a special agenda today and somebody wants to share something about themselves. They feel comfortable enough to do it. And I'm sitting there on pins and needles. I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to ring this bell and I can't unring it once I do it. So prior to that process, I was out to a few people, friends, family. 3 faculty members knew about me probably a year before I came out of school. Then about 10 people in the assistant principals, counselors, a few other people. And then that afternoon went from those that were keeping it private to I stood up and yeah, so I don't know how to say it, but I'm transgender. And my heart just dropped and there was like silence for a moment. And then when my colleague stood up and just started clapping, and I don't know how long it was, but it felt like a minute and a half standing ovation. And I'm just like, I was blown away by it. And after that, they asked a few questions, like, what do you want to be called? And I made a joke about, why don't you ask the English teachers, because they would know better whether it's Miss, Mrs., or whatever it is, and a few other things. And then they said, why don't you go back to your room to decompress and we'll talk about things. And I'm like, okay. And I walked back to my room like, can't believe I did that. I'm like, no, I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna pretend like I'm gonna do some work. And no sooner did I sit down to start typing an email, because like I wanted to like just not think about what I just did, there was a line of probably 40 or so of my colleagues right outside the door coming in, wanting to like give me hugs and say, I'm here for you. And I'm like, I could tell this story and I'm just going to eat up all the time, but the fact that my colleagues, followed by my students, and I just want to tell one more thing, because it really is, I think, also very powerful and important, is especially to many of my panelists, past students, current, well, no, I don't think there's any current students on the list today, but past students, you made my time much easier. But the first class in the morning after the information went out, they have never been so quiet. They sat there and listened. I told them the story, and they're like, okay. And I'm like, any questions? No, seriously, are there any questions about anything? No, are there questions? What are you wearing on Friday? I'm like, you'll find out Friday. Are there any more questions, everybody? Okay, so what are we doing now? We're working on our evolution project. And that's how it went for every single rest of my classes. So I had a really positive experience, and I hope other people can experience that too. But yeah.
I would love to be able to briefly elaborate on that story, because I was in Casey's class at that time. I was a junior at Scituate High School at the time. And also I was in the closet about my gender identity. And I felt that I maybe could never come out to the Scituate community. And then I got to experience as a student Casey coming out as like a teacher that I enjoyed and trusted, and like seeing the school community and just like the Scituate community in general was so supportive. And I was like, if she can do that, then I can do that. Like, I don't think I ever said that to you, but it was very impactful for me as a young person.
I hope that I did it for myself, but to do it for youth, you know, I wish I had a teacher my age, you know, when I was in your position. That would have probably changed my life dramatically. So I'm glad I was there for you as an educator and a role model in other ways. So thank you for being you, though, too.
I just want to jump in. Casey, you got so many comments of people thanking you for your story. Just thanking you for your courage, thanking you for sharing. So I just wanted to let you know that all of that has been coming in. So.
Darcy, do you have, or Sue, do you have anything you want to say about this specific question?
I mean, I could comment endlessly about Miss Kimball's story, but I'm gonna leave it to potentially move on to something else. Just that, like, I was a freshman, did not know anything about gender, and then receiving that email, no matter what wording it came in, I'm still kind of debating whether that was a good email or not, just wording wise. It kind of opened up that book for me to try to figure out what was going on in my head. But I never really came out, really, except like one post on Instagram and then one time to my like extended family. But like I just kind of showed up to like gigs wearing whatever I end up by wearing, and typically it's something ridiculous. I call my outfits like twink summer outfits, because like I just look like like a twink is like a term for like gay male bottoms. I don't identify as a twink, but I just dressed up really strangely, and everyone's like, "Yeah, Darcy, great, love to see it." I'm like, "Cool, wonderful."
Still have the picture of us in prom. It's still hanging up on my classroom in the front where we were having a good time at your junior prom.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was the first time I got to go to prom. So
Hey, me too. Actually, no, that was the second time. But yeah.
I have a quick little thing to say about this question for like visibility stuff. Is I just remember, so I was in college when I came out as trans non-binary, and I went to college in Pratt in Brooklyn, New York, and a lot of my friends stayed here in Massachusetts. So my like quote unquote coming out was over text or FaceTime or calling them or whatever. And I remember the first time I came home, or not the first time, but it was like one of the times I came home after coming out, and I was hanging out with two of my close friends, and I just realized that they like immediately had just switched pronouns, like switched what they were saying and stuff like that, and like no questions, like no hesitation. And it was just like, they probably thought nothing of it, but me like sitting there realizing that was like insanely cool and validating, and it was just a really awesome experience to just like hear them just have no problem with that and kind of just like flow into it. Yeah. I'm just gonna go on and ask another question that came in. I just, in relation to this last one that we had, I'm moving down a couple, but there's one that says, when have you been your happiest in your gender identity? Which I thought was a kind of a cute question. So if anyone has anything. Yes, Sue.
I think that the happiest I've been in my gender identity is, I mean, other than now, but it's been when I realized that I legitimately could go out and wear dresses and not and just be okay with it. I don't know, it's hard to explain what I mean by that, but I think before I understood what gender identity was, I always felt like it was almost like a costume, you know. But you know, I think I always sort of, you know, they used to call it cross-dressing. I always did that, but then when I figured out what gender identity was, and I could kind of merge the two, that's when I felt just most complete, as it were.
Yeah, Darcy.
Well, I have I don't know if people know what this is, but it's called synesthesia, which means that I can connect sight with sound, and like they both connect together. And so typically when I have like big things that my brain just kind of reveals to itself, like I don't really have control over it, it just kind of happens. But there was like this like thing in my brain. I'm not gonna go into detail about what it looked like because I could go on forever about that. But it wouldn't open up, and I was like waiting for it. I was like, what is this? And like that whole time I identified as non-binary, but I knew I was like transmasculine in some way. Like I knew that I presented as a male in society, but I didn't know to what degree. And it just like it opened at one point, and I literally just like started to cry. Like I was like, oh, sick, okay. Like it just felt like a bunch of like pieces came together, and I was like, this makes sense. That's fun.
Yeah.
I remember at the end of my freshman year of college, I had been working for most of that year to try and begin medically transitioning and trying to get on testosterone, and it was a strenuous process. Insurance is not the most helpful usually. So it was several months of just like having a difficult time and trying to work towards this goal. And it was like the very end of my school year, and I had made a lot of really wonderful friends that year that were super supportive of me being out and like open about my identity. And I was at the doctor's office and got confirmed for being able to start testosterone. And I remember crying just like absolute tears of joy, and like texting all of my friends, especially like the ones that I had made that year, like, hey, I'm so excited this is happening for me. And a lot of my friends were like really excited for me too. And it felt like the culmination of something I had been reaching towards for a very long time. And it still like makes me emotional to think about, but in a good way.
Well, Casey, do you have anything?
No, thanks. No, nothing strong to say there.
Okay.
Next question.
Yeah, let's move on. We have one that says, what can teachers do to better advocate for young queer people / those with diverse gender identities? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. My dog just opened the door. That scared me so bad. Or give them support in classrooms and or out of the classroom. Yeah, Darcy.
I feel like every teacher who genuinely cares about using the correct pronouns for someone, using the correct name for someone, all those teachers do it correctly. Like, there's nothing more that they could do, and it's amazing. And walking into a safe space, like I see Mr. Scopoletti here, like he was a great safe space for me. But there are a lot of teachers who just don't. And like I'm friends with a bunch of trans people at Scituate High, and like it's just really hard to have like all teachers use your pronouns and your name for some reason, even though it's just like a right to have that someone calls you the right pronouns and name. And like most students have their name like in the system as the name that they go by, and the pronouns that they go by, like they typically feel comfortable enough to express that to their teachers if they feel like that's a safe space. And so I feel like the best way to make it safer is to just communicate maybe better. I know that there's communication going around, but communicating better to other teachers who potentially don't seem to care as much.
I also found that when I got into college that a lot of teachers started like, I know that it's like sometimes a lot to deal with, but like even as a student, but like a worksheet or something that says like, do you have pronouns that you want me to use that I wouldn't, whatever, or another name that isn't on the roster, or like, do you use this name and these pronouns at home, so when I talk to your parent, I'm not like accidentally outing you or something like that. We didn't have worksheets in college, but teachers would like ask us just straight up, and that was like definitely better than having to like, before I like would go up to a teacher after and be like, hey, just so you know. It's like really awkward.
Yeah, so like if like the first day of school you pass out a sheet and like instead of just saying like name, date, block, it's like name, pronouns, just like making it just like clear on the get-go.
Yeah,
that's good. Because like every cis person would just like be like, okay, she, her, him, but like for those people who use different pronouns than what the birth certificate says, like that means a lot. Callie, you're gonna say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think normalizing pronouns is something that's very easy for teachers to do as like part of the conversation. Like if you're meeting a whole new group of students at the start of every school year, then like include pronouns as part of your introductions and make that as part of your classroom norm. And it makes it less of a stigmatized or like abstract concept for people if it brings it into reality. And I think it's a good habit for everybody to be doing in general, like whether it's in the classroom or in the work environment or whatever, just like this is something that makes it a lot easier for trans people to exist. And I've also had people tell me like, well, why don't just the trans people say their pronouns? And it's hard for me to articulate why that is kind of hurtful here, but it's like, it can be isolating if to just like single myself out and say, yes, I use different pronouns than you might be used to hearing. But if an entire classroom of people around me is doing that, is not nearly as isolating. It feels a lot more inclusive. And also I would say just like more general for school, like faculty and like teachers and stuff like that, to stick up for your students. Like whether it's in the classroom where you feel like things are being made into a joke that are not a joking matter when it comes to identity or like conversations about LGBT topics, or whether it's like, I am sure people have worked with faculty members who just don't seem to care about being on the same page. I know that this is like a pretty new, like talking about these things is pretty new for a lot of teachers, but it's not as new for people my age, I want to say. So like stick up for people when you hear them being talked down about or when you hear them being misgendered. Like that means the world to hear that somebody like corrects my pronouns when I'm being misgendered when I'm not in the room. And that's something that as a teacher, like you can absolutely be an advocate for your students in that way.
For sure. There's actually another question right here that says, should I ask someone for their pronouns if they don't offer them? And I would say yes, just ask if you don't know. And also I think like a lot of people I've started to do it, but I've gotten laughed at a bunch of times, but sometimes I'll offer my pronouns as an extension of my name if I'm introducing myself to somebody. And it does feel very alienating because that's not something that people do often. Every day. So when I did it, it got kind of awkward because people were like, why are you telling me that? Or like, why are you saying that? I was like, well, I just thought you might want to know or whatever. So yeah, if you just say yours, even if you don't think that you need to, then it just helps other trans or non-binary people to be comfortable to share theirs. Yeah, Darcy.
I feel like I should also add, just like as someone who has identified as non-binary, that it's much better to ask for someone's pronouns than for their gender identity. So like instead of like you're suspecting or like you're wondering if one of your friends or colleagues or whatever is trans, non-binary, gender fluid, any label really. In the end, that label doesn't really matter to you. What matters is the pronoun, because like you'll never go, oh, this is blank, they're gender queer or like something. You're always just going to use their pronouns, so just ask for their pronoun, and it's a lot less isolating feeling.
Sue, did you have something you need?
Yeah, I was just saying it's something that we teach business owners of fitness studios is offer up your pronouns and just normalize it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it might feel a little bit odd or awkward or whatever, but like anything else, if you just do it a few times, it'll just be normal.
For sure.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I hate to interrupt. If you don't mind, I was gonna ask, while we're on the topic, I was wondering if I could ask one of the questions, which is related to pronouns, which is, if you hear someone using someone's wrong name, like someone's dead name or someone's wrong pronouns, what should somebody do if you are like an ally hearing about that?
Yeah, Casey. Yeah.
I tried to stay away from the last question because, again, I have a very different view, and I feel like sometimes I felt like I failed, even though I think I did. I don't know, whatever. I'm not dealing with that one. But I can tell you one thing, as an educator, I'm privy to a lot of people that I know that are in the closet, whether that I just know or ones that have told me, and I have to dead name them because this is what they asked me to do, and it breaks my heart. And if they tell me to do that to protect their own identity, then that's what I do. But when I know for a fact that, they're out or want to be called or use this pronoun, then you do that, whatever. And whenever somebody is talking about that person, when they're not there, you need to defend them. See this right here? Protect trans kids.
That's what my pin says too.
I carry that around on every time I have a phone. When I put my phone in the little cubby thing, it says protect trans kids. So I try to make that evidently clear whether they're in the room or not. Do that for everybody.
Nice.
Yeah, I definitely should have mentioned that in the dead names slide. But if someone asks you to use their dead name with a certain person, 100% do that, because you might be putting them in harm's way if you out them to somebody who is not open or accepting. Yeah. Thank you for speaking on that. Let's see. So what are some specific ways or examples that family and friends can be an ally to their LGBTQIA loved ones?
Something that I think anybody who wants to be an ally can do is take it upon themselves to do more research. I've had many people in my life expect me to not only explain my identity, that part I'm fine with, but also like explain the whole context around it and like what the general understanding is and like this, that, and the other thing. It's like, we all have Google or your preferred search like engine. Like I believe that it should not be exclusively on trans people to educate the rest of everybody on what our identities mean and what our experiences are, because we all have access to the same information. The information I educated myself with is available to everybody on the internet. So like, I am more than happy to talk about these things until the cows come home, but I also believe that if you believe in being an active ally, take it upon yourself to do more research for more information.
Yeah, Darcy.
Yeah, what I would say is obviously it varies on the degree of which you're related to them. Like if the trans person is your kid, your parent, or if it's like your long lost cousin, then like it differs. But the main thing is just like use their name, use their pronouns, and like you can ask questions to them about like specific things about their identity and like their specific life. But you should educate yourself and not just expect that relative to answer every last question on the face of the earth, because that is so irritating. I feel like that is the only part of my identity sometimes. Like I play sports, I'm a musician, I'm vegan, like I'm all these things, and people are just like, so how's Jem's program going? Are you on testosterone yet? I'm like, there's so many other things. Like talk to me about something else and just educate yourself on Google. Like, yeah,
For sure. Yeah. And again, like we said before, like talking to one person about their identity or whatever is not the end all be all. Like everyone has their own experiences. So you should always keep that in mind.
I do want to say something before we move on with that one, is that it doesn't matter how old you are, because I know parents want to protect their children, but sometimes parents can be the worst thing to their children, and I was proof of that. I was proof of that. Luckily, I was an adult, well employed, had support on every other part of the world except from back home. Okay, I'm telling this specific to the parents out there, whoever you are, and have anybody in your family or somebody that you've ever said, I love you no matter what, prove it. Don't fight them on this. If you really love your child, you need to support them. I'm getting really passionate and really angry about this right now, because just support your kids. That's it.
Yeah. If you love them, you'll love them no matter what. I think that this is a good one to kind of go into a little bit. Is this person asked, as an elementary educator, is there something I can do specifically to support younger kids who might be questioning who they are? Yeah, Darcy.
I mean, okay, I was like thinking about this for also parenting, like if there are young parents out there, really trying your hardest. I know that society really says otherwise, but to try and make things as gender neutral as possible. So not making feminine things pink, not making feminine things in general. Like things should just be things. And so like if you have like purple bins or like black bins or white bins or gray, like something that's just like not gendered, then like I think that'll make spaces a lot better for people who are trying to figure things out. And also people who aren't trying to figure things out, they don't really care. Like they're just like, a bin, you know?
They're children. Like,
They're children. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like paint your baby's room like, I don't know, gray or yellow. I don't know.
Or just you can paint it pink and say that has nothing to do with who you are.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Rainbows are cool too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of similarly to like what Darcy was saying, I think that the classroom in general is gendered in a lot of ways that are completely unnecessary, especially in elementary education. And I get that it's just like something that we're all very used to. It's part of our society, but it absolutely does not have to be. Like, you don't ever have to split your classroom into like, okay, boys go over here, girls go over here. Like, there are more creative ways to do it that are also more inclusive, because a lot of those instances can actually feel very isolating for people who are like, well, I don't know what side to go to then. And especially as a child who does not necessarily have the words to define that feeling, that can be really upsetting. So like, also in that same vein, be a trusted adult. And I'm sure that most teachers know exactly what I mean when I say that, but like, be somebody that your students feel like they can talk to, because again, especially younger kids might not have the words to describe what they're feeling, but they're still feeling that, and they might not want to like talk to you about it if they trust you. So like, yeah.
Yeah. I think Casey, you had something to say.
I'm Darcy first, then I'll finish up as the teacher person.
Okay.
Gym class. Do not do girls versus boys. Don't do it. Don't do it. I was literally walking back and forth for like the longest time. It felt like the longest time. It was probably like 5 seconds. But like, I was like, I don't know where I want to go. Just make it like people who are wearing blue shorts that day, like go over there. Like, don't make it girls versus boys, because that's also anti-feminist. So don't do it.
Yeah, I have a quick thing to say too. Like, I think as I mean, I teach classes, and I not for kids but for adults, but and as a little bit of a teacher, I think a good way to think about it is just like educate yourself as much as you can, so that when a kid comes up to you or a person comes to you saying like, I don't know who else to talk to about this, do you have any information for me, you can give them like information that is appropriate for them, and you have actually or are a source of information, because as an educator you should have some information, I think, and just like, yeah, be prepared for that.
I saw that comment too. It was cute. Anyways, I'm sorry. I was just reading the comments that was coming in, but
Oh yeah.
Again, sticking to the question, again, from a high school educator, since, you know, bless you, those are in elementary and middle school, because I don't know how you do it. You're probably asking me, how do I do it? But train yourself to stop saying guys or girls or whatever. Just like, folks, friends. I say friends all the time to my students now. I have to ingrain it into my head, but I say friends. I try to do that as much as possible, or use students' names also, because I have a bad memory. It takes me probably another 2 months from even now to remember everybody's name, but it's even worse with masks. But friends, folks, comrades, whatever. I mean, whatever you think is appropriate for obviously in elementary school, but friends always works no matter the age. But you got to train yourself, because I still mess up with that. It just is a default after doing it for multiple years. That's a suggestion.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I just had one and then I scrolled.
Popping to a time check. We have about 10 more minutes left in our Q&A, just so everyone knows.
There's one right here. It says, generally, what is the process for beginning hormone therapy? I think that's fun to talk about.
Do we really want to talk about that, considering it's medication and other stuff like that, besides linking them to something? I'm just thinking that based on our own rules, it might not be the best question to really go into.
Yeah,
because I've had people ask me that. I'm like, nope, don't ask me that.
okay.
That's my personal view. I don't know what the rest of the panel, I see some nodding.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe I can, if anyone wants to say like generally, like I guess if they want to, but I can drop the information to Fenway Health, their transgender health page.
I mean, I feel comfortable to answer. For trans male people, people who are looking to transition to a more masculine presenting person hormonally, you go on testosterone and you do testosterone injections.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, it works the opposite way for trans feminine people, but you gotta talk to your doctor. I'll say that.
Yeah. What should we do if we hear someone using the wrong pronoun for someone? I don't think we have to talk about that a lot. I think just correct them. Yeah,
Yep.
that one's pretty easy. Just wanted to say that really quick.
Unless unless that person has said, you know,
Yes,
don't the caveat, if that person doesn't want to be outed to a certain person, but in
yeah,
general,
I think
they're out.
yeah. On that way to like, I just wanted to touch on it really quick. I was just thinking about that. When someone comes out to you, that I think that that's always a really good question to ask them. Like if you guys are having a conversation about it, be like, oh, can you tell me specifically maybe, or like a broad generalization of who you're out to so that I don't accidentally out you to other people. I think that's just a good conversation to have. Yeah. What does it mean when someone opts for pronouns like she, they, as opposed to she, her? Why they? Darcy.
This is actually really important because a lot of my friends are going through this. When people go by she, they, it means that both pronouns work, so please use both pronouns. It's very common for people who identify as she, they, he, they, one of the two, to have their friends only use he or she. Please use both, because like typically that person is either identifying as not cis or they're questioning it. So like offer support to them by using the different pronouns, letting them hear what those pronouns sound like in context to them, and then like just like it's an act of being supportive to a person. So don't just use the gendered ones, use the neutral ones too.
Yeah.
And like some people just feel more comfortable with a broader range of identifying terms. Like maybe you wake up one day and feel differently about your gender. Plenty of people experience that. You might use a broader set of pronouns. So like you can splice together pretty much as many pronoun sets as you would like. I most commonly hear people using she and they or he and they. And it's just like, yeah, also like Darcy said, use both of them if that's what people prefer. Like you don't have to stick with one or the other, but it's like, it does come down to the individual. A lot of people just use it as like, I don't feel the need to identify with this one set. Like I don't feel the need to limit myself with it.
I might just add that sometimes people feel more comfortable using like one pronoun set with one group of people and another one with another. Like in my own experience, for the most part, like I use she and her for just about everyone, except for when I'm talking to two specific people, and for whatever reason, my male pronouns just seem the best there. And don't ask me to explain that; it just is. But that should be valid too.
Yeah. Yeah, I had some main experiences with my family. Like, my mom has had trouble changing the pronouns, but with her, it doesn't really bother me as much. Like, I'm okay with her using those because I know that she's still coming from a place of love and she accepts me for who I am, and it's not something that, I get like offended by or anything like that. So yeah, I think in that way it is the same. Anyone else have anything? Okay. We have another one here that says, if you grew up in a religious community, did you feel that this was a safe and accepting space? If it was, how did you feel that? If it wasn't, then how could these spaces help make people feel safe and accepting?
So I didn't, so I grew up, my parents are Hindu, and the particular community that they were part of, my parents were very accepting, but not all of their friends were. And I mean, it's a very gossipy community. And someone's always talking about you. So, I mean, the way of making it more accepting is, I don't know that I have a good answer to that. Maybe not do that. Don't be gossiping behind everyone's back.
Yeah.
I don't have a good answer to that, but it does happen, and it's it doesn't need to happen.
Yeah. I grew up Protestant here in Scituate. My mom is still pretty religious, but the rest of my family isn't really. But I stopped going to church in high school, and I did think that, I think it was just like, I don't know, there were like some specific instances where it was just really hard to separate them. Like there was this one instance when after I gone to my first gay pride parade in Boston, and me and my friend were walking back to the train, and there was like literally a sidewalk through the Boston Common where there was like a bunch of religious, quote unquote, religious people. I don't know exactly what religion, but they were like literally lining the sidewalk and like just yelling at us, like, you're all going to hell, like all, I won't go into details, but like other stuff like that. And obviously like just imagining like coming from this amazing space where everyone was so happy and like all of these like, it was just basically, you know, if you go into Pride, it's like a big party, just like, oh my God, sorry, my dog, I don't know if my dog is barking. And then walking down this, literally a line of people just shouting at you. I literally went home and cried, I don't even know for how long. And the next, or like whatever the next day of church was, I like was like, I can't do that. And so I did feel like a huge separation in that moment. And like I stopped going in general, and I still haven't really like reconnected with that. So there definitely is like, I mean, obviously there are some people who have found a balance, but it is just something that has never been able to come back into my life. And sometimes later in high school, I think I did try to go to a different church to see if it was different. And then another incident happened where the pastor was like being super homophobic, and I just like got up and left. And I was like, you know, I'm not gonna try right now, and like maybe in the future. But yeah, didn't make me feel accepted for sure. I'm not really sure how it could make you feel accepted other than just, you know, being open and being educated and, you know, not saying homophobic things or transphobic things is definitely a big one. Yeah, and that's all I have to say about that, I think.
To add on to the responses we've already been sharing about this question, like there definitely are religious spaces that are very accepting of people in the LGBT community. Like I myself was not raised religious, but I did join the Unitarian Universalist Church in high school, specifically the First Parish one in Scituate. I haven't been there in a hot minute, but I know that I can walk in anytime and they'll be like, yes, we accept you as part of our community. And they are certainly not the only church that is like that. So there are a lot of religious spaces where homophobia and transphobia are rampant, but it is not every single one. And any church or religious space, in my opinion, has room to turn around and be more accepting of LGBT identifying people and more welcoming of them into their doors, because frankly, they are most often the community members that need a lot of help or a lot of community support and aren't getting it. And a lot of churches are passionate, they say, about like helping people in their community. That's a great way to do it, even if like they may have a history of not necessarily feeling that way towards LGBT identifying people. Like it's never too late to change your mind, and that can start within your own church community. If you feel like they are not the most accepting, be the change.
Yes. Jackie, could we have like one more question? Or?
Time for one more. I don't know how you'll pick. There's been so many awesome picks.
I think I have this one. I think it's a good one just for the end. Someone asked, are there any resources, podcasts, websites, books that you would recommend to learn more about terminology? And I think adding to that, just anything, especially regarding gender and across the board for teens, adults, young children, etc.
And I also want to add, if maybe there's even just media that you like that you feel like represented by, share that too, because I think that's a good way to learn also.
Anyone want to start?
I really like the podcast Gender Reveal. It's like 6 seasons, and it's really, I don't know, it touches on a lot of topics.
I used to watch a YouTuber named Uppercase Chase, and I don't know if he's creating that much YouTube content anymore, but he has several lengthy video series that go into like different topics of being LGBT and being trans and like what that means in a medical context and different stuff, like show this video to your family if you are identifying as XYZ or whatever, and like a lot of different helpful videos that I shared with other people when I was into them. So I definitely recommend that. The YouTube channel is Uppercase Chase. And also like, this isn't necessarily like a factual like resource, but in terms of like LGBT representation in media that I really enjoy, Sense8 on Netflix is an awesome show that I really love and represents a lot of different LGBT identifying people. So like that's not a factual resource to seek information. It's just something that I enjoy watching with queer people in it.
And speaking on TV shows, Pose on Netflix,
Yes.
also an amazing show. I would recommend that a million times.
Yeah,
a
I would
book.
just say YouTube.
Guys.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you can go.
No, I would just say YouTube.
In
Like that's
general.
typically where I go. Like Jamie Dodger is a YouTuber that I watch a lot.
Yep.
Sam something. His last name is something. I don't know what his name is. But like these are just like trans YouTubers, and they'll pop up. They're everywhere.
An audience member said the book How to They Them, A Visual Guide to Non-Binary Pronouns and the World of Gender by Stuart Getty. And they found it at the Scituate Library. So get it there. Another book that is fiction is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. It's not gender-based, but it is an excellent queer book. I recommend it. It's one of my favorites, and you probably will cry because it's so sad, but in a good way, like happy tears.
Can confirm, I did cry. Mia lent me that book, and I cried. It was awesome. Does anyone want to add anything else before we end our panel tonight?
For other resources on Instagram, there's, I was looking for it, but Skylar Baylor, his Instagram handle is Pink Manta Ray, and he's transgender and he is an athlete, and he like talks about his experience and has really like a lot of information and great resources and talks about a lot of transgender stuff. So I would recommend checking out his Instagram page.
Awesome. So I think that wraps up our Q&A session for tonight. And I guess I wish I could have everyone unmute, but everyone can give a round of applause in their little Zoom box, I guess, if they want, for all of our awesome panelists, because, and maybe some claps, I don't know, whatever you want to do. This is so awesome. Before we end for the night, I'm just going to wrap up with some information about Statute of Pride and some other things. So stick around for like 2 more minutes. I promise we're not going to keep you for that much longer, just so we can be finished with the night. But sorry, I'm kind of just getting oriented. I cried a couple of times from listening to you all. So thank you again. Like I can't even thank you enough for how powerful and awesome that was. Here I am on my corporate sponsor slide telling you how powerful your talk was. But thank you. Thank you, I think, from everyone, too, in our comments. We had so many amazing comments from people thanking you all for sharing what you did tonight, so thank you. So yeah, I guess just to finish things up, I just want to do a quick thank you to our corporate sponsors. You can read them all here: Lenny's Hideaway, The Workout Club, Amy Martin Landscape Design, McGrath PR, Spotlight Music and Theater Academy, Tacklebox Fishing School, Damali Consulting. I'm sure there are maybe some more recent ones that maybe we missed, and if we did, please let us know so we can get you next time. And if you want to be a corporate sponsor, you can find out more on our website. And I also want to make sure I give a shout out to to Seth from SCTV for recording for us tonight, which is awesome. So I want to do, and also a thank you to Ruth Thompson, who put out a great information about us in the paper. So what's coming up next? Next for Scituate Pride is our Pride 2021 planning meeting. So next Thursday, so 6 to 7:30, I should have put the time, 6 to 7:30 next Thursday, we'll have a planning meeting to plan all the awesome events we're going to do this June for Pride 2021. The Zoom code is here, but if you forget the Zoom code or you don't write it down, you can find us on Facebook. On Facebook is the best way to figure out when our meetings are, but also you can DM us on Instagram. You can contact us on our website. We're like all over the place. You'll find us, I promise. You can text me if you have my phone number. That's fine too. And I do want to do a quick little plug before we finish. So this is it. Finish. This is all that information where you can reach us. And before we're like done, really quickly, I just want to plug our new merch that we have, our new merchandise. I'm wearing it now. See, it's like our t-shirt. So if you would like to buy that, those t-shirt sales help us a lot with putting on events in the spring, and also with some other pursuits that we want to get into, helping our community and helping to protect trans kids in our community, like so many of our panelists talked about tonight. So I guess without further ado, I mean, that's pretty much it from us. The last thing I'll say is everyone wants to smile. We might take a photo of people with a video on it. So if you want to turn your video off, you can. But if you want to smile, you can do that too. Everyone's turning their video off. Oh God. But do a quick smile so we can take a screenshot for our media. Yay!
Yay.
Okay, I don't know who took it. I took one. Other people might have taken one. But awesome. Thank you everyone so much for coming. This was like better than I could have even dreamed. Panelists, if you want to stick around for a couple minutes, that would be great. But everyone else, you're free. You do not have obligation to Scituate Pride anymore. Thank you for coming.